Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is pass. Let's take a look at some of the ways we use this verb. The first way you're likely to hear the verb pass used is to mean to successfully complete a test or a course. I hear that all the time from students. Did I pass the test? What score do I need to pass the test or to pass the class? A second way to use this verb is to transfer something to someone else. Now, this could be an everyday object, right? Maybe you say to a friend, pass me that pen, right? So you're asking someone else to transfer the pen to you. But this verb is also used in sports, right? Pass me the ball, right? And this could be the action of throwing something or kicking something. And we'll talk a little more about that later as well. A third way to use this verb pass is to mean to move or cause to move in a specified direction. So you might think about cars when they're on the road and one car drives faster or passes another. A fourth way you might hear the verb pass used is to talk about approving a proposal or a law, and generally that's done by voting. Right? So Congress passed a new law. A fifth way you might hear the verb pass used is to mean to go by. And generally, when we use this meaning for the verb pass, you're going to have a subject of time. So we're talking about how quickly time is passing by, or maybe how quickly it isn't. Finally, the sixth way you can use this verb pass is to decline something. So as an example, somebody offers you a treat, a cookie, a cupcake, right? And you go, no, I'll pass, right? You're saying, no, thank you. You're declining the thing or object you've been offered. I want to note these are not all the meanings or definitions for the verb pass. I've tried to pick out some of the ones I think are more common for you to either hear as you're out talking at work or at school, or when you're reading. You might see these meanings used as well. Pass is a regular verb. To make the progressive tense, all we need to do is add ing to make passing. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are made by adding ed. Since this verb ends with a s or s sound, the ed is going to make a t sound. Past, past. Let's continue looking at some other meanings of the verb pass, but now we'll look at it as it relates to phrasal verbs. So this is combining a verb with a preposition or participle to change the meaning. So the first phrasal verb that you might hear is pass away. And it has kind of a sad meaning, so I'm sorry perhaps to bring our conversation down, but it's a polite way to say that someone has died. So here it is in an example sentence. Her grandmother just passed away yesterday. Another phrasal verb, a little happier, that you might hear is to pass something on. And it means to transfer information. Let's take a look at this meaning in an example sentence. Will you pass this message on to Ruth? Okay, so specifically referencing another person. Will you share this information? Pass on something could be used another way, and that's, again, to say no to something. Generally, we use this with invitations to events or to do a certain activity. So this is going to be very close to that sixth meaning we looked at earlier. So here's an example using pass on something. I think I'll pass on the zoo next week. I just don't have the time. So what this sentence implies is perhaps a friend said, do you want to come to the zoo with me next week? Right? The person's answering, I have to pass. I have to pass on this activity because I don't have any time. Another phrasal verb you might hear is pass out, and its meaning is to faint or to become unconscious. Let's take a look at this meaning in a sentence. This aerobics class is so exhausting. I might pass out. So somebody's heart rate is really thumping. I imagine this person who's saying this is sweating profusely, sweating a lot, and they think, I'm going to faint. The last phrasal verb we'll look at today is pass up, and it means to not take advantage of an opportunity. Here's an example of that in a sentence. I passed up the opportunity to work for that company. I really regret my decision. Let's continue using the verb pass in a few different verb tenses. We'll talk about the imperative, simple past, and simple future today. Let's start with imperatives. You might remember this is a command, and it's unique because we do not have a stated subject when we form sentences in this way. The subject is implied, and it's either you singular or you plural, depending on if you're talking to one person or perhaps a group. We can always soften our commands when we're telling someone to do something by starting it with please. So you're going to see that example in my affirmative sentence. Please pass me the mashed potatoes. This imperative is likely something you'll hear around a dinner table, particularly if there are many people gathered to eat together. So this might not be happening a great deal right now while there's still a pandemic going on, but I hope we can return to the days when we can have large family dinners. If I want to make a negative imperative, I'm going to use don't and then the base verb. Let's look at an example of that. Don't pass up the chance to get outside and enjoy the weather. So in the United States right now, it's getting a little bit cooler. Before we know it, we might see snow. I know certain parts of the United States are seeing snow right now. So this is a command to go and enjoy good weather before it becomes very cold. Next, let's take a look at simple past tense. We're using this particular verb tense to talk about a completed action at a definite time in the past. In the affirmative, we're going to use the ed form of the verb, and this is true no matter what our subject is. Here's an example sentence. His father passed away when he was a child. If I want to make a negative sentence in simple past tense, I want to use did not and then the base verb. Here's an example of that. We didn't pass through Chicago when we drove to Canada. Finally, if I want to make a yes or no question in the simple past tense, I'm going to start with did, then I'll have my subject, and then the base verb. Here's an example. Did you pass the driver's test? Next, let's look at simple future. And today we're going to use will and a base verb to make all of our sentences. You tend to hear people use will in expressing the future when they're making offers or promises. Let's take a look at an affirmative sentence. I will pass the message on to my boss. Again, this might come out more like a promise. So you're saying will in the base verb. This is going to be the case no matter what the subject is. Next, if I want to make a negative sentence in the simple future with will, I'm going to insert not after will, and then I'll use the base verb. You might hear native speakers use the contraction form won't. Here's an example. Time won't pass quickly while you wait for his phone call. This is another usage, making a prediction. Also, we tend to use will with that. Finally, for a yes or no question in the simple future using will, we're going to start with will, then we'll have our subject, and then the base verb. Let's take a look at an example. Will Congress pass a bill that provides more help to people who have lost their jobs due to COVID-19? It's a great question. We don't know the answer to that right now as I record this. Finally, let's take a look at some words that are related to our verb pass. And the first, you'll notice, has the exact same spelling, and it's going to have the same pronunciation. It's just the noun form of pass. And just like the verb, the noun can also have many different meanings. The first meaning of the noun pass is a successful completion of an examination or course. So it goes back to that first definition of the verb we looked at earlier. Let's take a look at a noun form here. People who take our class have a 90% pass rate. So there we're talking about the percentage that successfully complete. A second way you might hear the noun pass used is to mean the act of throwing, kicking, or hitting the ball or a puck to another player on the same team. So again, this connects back to the usage in sports. You'll hear people talking about passes in soccer or kind of international football, American football, basketball, hockey, in volleyball, you pass as well. And I'm probably leaving many out, but let's look at our example sentence. That was a great pass. Another way to use this noun that perhaps is a little different than something we've talked about earlier is a card or ticket or permit that gives permission or access to something. Let's take a look at this usage in a sentence. Do you have the free movie passes? So again, maybe someone was given a little card or ticket, one free admission to a movie, and so those little slips of paper we're calling passes. Another related noun is a passerby. This is a person who happens to be going past something, especially when they're walking. So let's look at this word in a sentence. A passerby saw the lost child and called 911. The last word we're going to look at today is an adjective. It's passable. It means just good enough to be acceptable. So this is going to sort of connect back to our first definition of the verb successfully completing a test or course or something of that nature. So here's that usage. Your last essay was passable. This might be a sentence that a teacher or tutor uses in discussing somebody's work. So they're not saying that the essay was excellent, right? Probably not getting 100% or an A+, but it was good enough to get by. Another meaning for passable is to be free of obstacles. So let's take a look at that usage in a second. The trail wasn't passable after the storm. So here, perhaps a tree fell down, maybe many trees fell down, and it's blocking the trail. So people aren't able to walk or bike along it or through it. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.